Okay, welcome everyone. I hope you can all hear me. This is Social Skills 101. And let's see, I need to make sure I can mute all of you upon entry so we don't, there we go, so we don't talk over one another. Great. So as we have this 1-hour webinar, please feel free to type in any questions that you have, and I will hope to have some time at the end to answer them. And if not, then we can email or have another follow-up call. So today we'll be talking about helping your children or your child, or if you're a teacher, then your students, to helping kids to navigate the wild world of friendships. So a little bit of a learning curve using this platform, so forgive me. There we go. So today you will learn a few things. We'll talk about what I see as the 4 main components of social skills. Of course, there's a lot to social skills, and so this is just my thoughts around what are the 4 components of social skills and how you can support each one. We'll talk about how executive functioning plays into social skills and what you can do to help. We'll talk about what executive functioning is. It's kind of a hot topic these days. So I thought it's important to address that, because it's an important piece. We'll talk about what a child really needs in order to have healthy conflict resolution, which is oftentimes the crux of why parents and teachers seek social skills support, because children are having a hard time resolving conflicts that they're having with peers in a healthy way. So we'll talk about what a child needs in order to do that. And then we'll talk about the 5 most important things that you can do to support your child's success with peers and with teachers. And I will offer some tools and resources on teaching specific social skills in a fun way that you can incorporate right away. So a little bit about me. This is a photo of me with my nephew and my niece last summer. So I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been supporting kids and families since 2002. I started with doing floor time, which is an intervention for kids on the autism spectrum, and then moved into doing psychotherapy and became very involved with the Association for Play Therapy. And so now I do family and individual play therapy in San Francisco and in the East Bay, and I do social skills groups and a social skills camp, and I teach parenting by connection groups, and really fun stuff. So that's a little bit about me, just so you know who you're getting this information from. Oops. Okay, there we go. So what are social skills? So it's thrown around a lot. Social skills, my child needs social skills, or we need to learn some social skills, but what is it really? So social skills is really everything that you need to know in order to interact well with other people, even when you're alone. Because when you're alone reading a book, or if you are in a common area and then you leave, you need to be thinking about other people. You need to be thinking about when you leave that area, how you being there will impact others. And when you're reading, to be able to identify what's going on with characters, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're planning, what their actions mean. And so social skills are really all the skills that we need in order to interact with other people. And as human beings, we are so social. So essentially, I feel like social skills is kind of everything that means to be human. unless you're a recluse or a renunciate, which those are that's the outliers. And even then, it's questionable. So essentially, it's a huge topic. So we're going to break it down a little bit today. So for our purposes, there are 4 areas of social skills. There's executive functioning, cognitive flexibility, self-regulation, and nonverbal communication. And we're going to go through each of those. And each of them overlap because we are whole human beings. We have a whole brain. So there's not any one of these that is separate from the other, distinctly separate, but we can break it down to make it easier to understand and to teach the things that may be missing or may need to be emphasized. So let's start with executive functioning. So everyone loves Calvin and Hobbes. So I found this great comic that illustrates what executive functioning means. So Calvin is reading a book to Hobbes, and he says, "Problems often look overwhelming at first. The secret is to break problems into small, manageable chunks. If you deal with those, you're done before you know it. For example, I'm supposed to read this entire history chapter. It looks impossible, so I break the problem down." And Hobbes says, "You focus on reading the first section." Calvin throws the book and says, "I ask myself, do I even care?" So executive functioning skills are what we need in order to break down bigger problems. So the pieces involved in executive functioning are planning, organizing, prioritizing, shifting when something isn't going how you thought it would go, memorizing, and checking. So you can think of it as taking all the information that's around you and funneling it into the appropriate categories in your mind and in your life. The part of the brain that deals mostly with executive functioning skills is the frontal lobe, the part that's just right behind your forehead. So this is the part that's developed last in human history, and we use it to we use it for a higher order thinking. So in regards to using executive functioning in social skills, you need to be able to plan the steps to join kids in play. So it's actually, there's many steps. If a child is watching another group of kids or one other child playing and they want to join, there are many steps involved. You first have to notice so have attention first and foremost to what the other child's doing. Try and interpret what it is that they are playing in some capacity. Not exactly, but you have to have a sense. You have to be able to read their nonverbal cues. Are they open to playing with others? Does this seem like a game that I'd want to play? You'd walk up to them, decide how close to stand, how far to stand. Then do you say something? Do you just start playing? What do you say if you say something? So there's a lot of steps, in fact, to joining other children in play. And when I work with kids, sometimes what we'll do is we'll sit off to the side and we'll actually use kind of a checklist and say, okay, let's observe these children. If I want to go join with them, what do I need to know? What are they doing? What are they saying? Okay, what do I think I could do to join them? Okay, what's my plan? And then we go and do it. So they have to actually plan it. They have to be able to ask for help. Executive functioning and social skills is knowing when you need help from your friends or from a teacher or someone higher. It's being able to attend while others talk and play, which includes being able to filter the appropriate information. What words are important to hear, what words are not important to hear, what movements should be filtered out. So being able to attend and filter out the appropriate, the most salient information. Being able to control impulses. So impulses we'll talk about this a little bit later. It's a natural part of being human. It's an animal part of us where we have the impulse to say something or do something, or we're mad and so we want to hit or bite. And executive functioning is what allows us to plan and think through what's going to happen if I do this, and to be able to control that impulse to make a different decision. Executive functioning with social skills is also about shifting plans and transitioning activities. If you've ever observed or played with especially young boys in particular, the game will shift five times every minute. And so you have to, kids have to really be able to be sort of on their toes and be able to shift the plans and transition from one thing to another. And it really requires a great deal of just thinking on your feet. You have to be able to adapt behavior to different situations. How children act with one group of friends or with one friend one-on-one is going to be different in different situations. And this is a normal part of societal functioning. We don't act the same with our family as we do at work, as we do with our best friend from second grade. You adapt your behavior to fit different situations. There's also a piece of memorizing social norms. A lot of us tend to just absorb the information that our society tells us is normal, but for some people, it's a little bit harder to pick out what those norms are. For example, standing about an arm's distance away from someone who you just meet, but giving a hug to someone who you've known for a while and love. Talking at a medium level when you're inside, that kind of thing. Those are two very small social norms that we have in America, and the social norms are not the same everywhere. So there's an element of being able to memorize and remember the social norms. So this is the executive functioning piece of social skills. So the next element is cognitive flexibility. So cognitive flexibility is the ability to be flexible in your thinking. So it's to be able to follow someone else's plan and play instead of just what you want. To be able to go with the flow of the group, because it can flow in many different ways, and as we said earlier, be fluid. Matching the group's energy. So if they're up, being up. If they're low, being low. If they're sitting quietly in the library, sitting quietly in the library. Noticing what the energy is and matching it. Being able to be flexible in your thinking. Figuring out unstructured play, which is hard for many people, including adults. Unstructured time requires a lot of cognitive flexibility and ability to just adapt to what's happening in the moment, both internally and externally. The ability to lose gracefully is a big part of cognitive flexibility, which includes being able to have appropriate self-talk. Oh, I'm mad right now, and that's okay. So validating the feeling. But I don't have to be so mad because I know I'll win another time. So thinking through with some hopefulness that there'll be another time. Oh, if I get really, really mad, my friend might not want to play with me next time. So I'm going to go ahead and just lose gracefully right now. So that takes a tremendous amount of resilience and flexibility to be able to lose gracefully. And we'll talk more about that one later, because that is often a very big topic. Cognitive flexibility is also about knowing when rules can be bent or broken. It's actually really important for kids to know when they can break the rules. And it's not, it's just a part of social norm. When can you talk with your friend in between transitions in the class and not get in trouble? When can you actually go a little bit over the line but not too far? This is actually a healthy part of social skills, is knowing when the rules can be bent or broken in an appropriate and healthy way. It's not about following the rules all the time to a T. It's about being able to break them skillfully. Again, just part of being human. So that's cognitive flexibility. The third skill in social skills, or third factor, is self-regulation. Again, a really big topic. So self-regulation is the ability to regulate your thoughts, your feelings, and your body to essentially stay calm but alert. So there's a lot involved in it, including diet and sleep. But there's also other elements, such as knowing how to wind up or down when needed. So if a child's feeling very sleepy or kind of not attentive, what are tools that you can use to wind up? For example, jumping up and down, or spinning can help children to wind up their regulation system. Chewing gum can help. It can actually do both. It can help them wind down if they have too much energy. Pushing on the wall, squeezing their body, taking really, really, really deep breaths so that they actually feel their lungs at capacity. You need to kind of feel that pressure inside in order to wind down. Those are just a few tools. This is sort of the purview of occupational therapists, and I'm not an occupational therapist, but I've worked with many, many, many of them and many children who use occupational therapy strategies, and this is the purview of those professionals. What are tools that you can do to get a kid to wind up when they're low and they need to be up, or wind down when they're high and they need to be down. So children to be able to have those tools on their own and self-regulate is a really important part of social skills. Being able to match the intensity of the reaction to the situation, more or less. This is not a hard line, especially for younger children, and we're going to go into that in a little bit, but it's actually normal for kids to have a bigger reaction than you think would be appropriate. And part of that is just their developing brain. Part of that is the stressors of being a child and not censoring your emotions yet, which is a good thing. However, there is a degree. And so, to help a child be able to regulate their thoughts and their feelings and their body enough that their reaction can match the intensity of the situation and not be off the top, over the top. So being aware of your emotional and physical state. You can't do any of this if you're not aware of what you're feeling in your body and in your emotions. So that is a really big one. You're not able to address the challenges of self-regulation if you don't even know that there's a problem because you can't feel it. So starting to help your child to gain awareness of what they're feeling just throughout the day, asking little things. What do you feel in your arm right now? What do you feel in your tummy? What do you feel in your chest? And that would be your physical state. Do you feel crunchy? Do you feel sleepy? Do you feel energetic? You can find lots of sensation-based words to help them identify what's going on in their physical state and to model it too. The same with emotions. And there's a lot of really great emotion charts out there. I recommend parents getting them. There's even ones for teens. There's one, what is it? It's like a manga, the Chinese, or I think it's Japanese anime, with just different emotions. So you can put up an emotion chart on the fridge or in the bathroom, and just, what are 3 feelings that you had today? Oh, here's 3 feelings that I had today. They're not going to be vulnerable with you if you're not vulnerable with them. So really starting to identify what your emotions are and giving them that vocabulary so they can identify it too. And for the real little ones who might not be able to connect what they're feeling to a picture or a word yet, just getting that emotion chart out and having them explore it. What's a face that you like today? What's one you want to talk about? Or let's make this face in the mirror. Think of a time that maybe we felt that way, or what's a time you tend to feel that way. So helping your child to start to become aware of what they're feeling in their body and in their emotions can help with self-regulation. You also have to be able to tolerate a wide range of emotions and to get soothing to help. get soothing and help in order to regulate, in order to have healthy social interactions. So even if you're aware of your physical state, if it's too overwhelming to feel a lot of joy or a lot of sadness, it's going to be hard to self-regulate. And of course, those things are hard for all of us, but to a degree that's appropriate for a child. So for kids who have a hard time tolerating a wider range of emotions, you want to just kind of gently push the edge little by little, so if they don't want to look at sad pictures in a book because it makes them feel too much and they're not sure how to deal with that. Slowly you start to, you just look at it little by little. You open the page and shut it real quick, then open it again for 2 seconds, or open it and close your eyes, and both of you close your eyes and no, I don't want to look at it, and take a deep breath and then peek, So you start to approach the emotions that are challenging for them. And I think of it as like a hot cauldron, expanding your inner capacity to be with these different feelings in a relaxed way, not tensed up around them, which at first it will be, but to start to approach these anger and grief and fear in a way that, it's like, yeah, I can look at that feeling. I can feel that feeling and know that I can get help and I'm not alone. And it's just a feeling. So these are lifelong skills that we just start to teach our children. But they do take a lifetime to develop. And it's kind of wonderful with children because we get to develop along with them. So that's about self-regulation. So nonverbal communication is the fourth element of social skills that I'm including here. So nonverbal communication are all the ways that we communicate without words. It's our tone of voice. It's our body posture. It's where we're standing in the room. A way to break that down is how to show that you're listening. So a lot of times we'll tell children, are you listening to me? And they are listening, but they're not showing that they're listening. And that makes us not feel cared about. When someone is not doing the social norms that show that they're listening by having their body facing you and their eyes looking at you and their body relatively calm, then the other person doesn't feel cared about and doesn't feel listened to. It doesn't mean you don't care about them or the listener isn't caring, but it doesn't communicate that message. And so we can teach our children those things just very explicitly. Well, I know that you're listening, but it's really important for me that you show me that you're listening, and break down those elements with the eyes and the facing your body, facing your shoulders towards the person, and having your body more or less calm. How close to stand or sit to someone is a part of nonverbal communication. And again, this is something you can talk through with your child. Well, when you're going to circle time, how close do you think that Johnny would like you to sit next to him? Well, how about Emily? Is she the same? Because it's going to be different with different kids. But just getting them to start thinking about how close we stand or sit to someone communicates something to them. It can communicate aggression. It can communicate love and closeness. It can communicate carelessness. And so we just want to have choice around what it is that we're communicating. And that's what we want to try and teach our children. Well, when you go up to him and you sit real, real close, I think he doesn't like it. I think it doesn't feel good to him because that's not what he wants. It's not that he doesn't like you. He just wants a little more space. So teaching them how close to stand or sit to someone, or just noticing when they do know. Being able to modulate the level and tone of voice. This is something that is particularly hard for teenagers and particularly triggering for parents of teenagers, parents, teachers, caregivers of teenagers, probably because most of us were not listened to as teenagers. And so when our teenager is having a feeling and it's coming out through their tone of voice because they're at a phase where their brain is actually changing more then the only other time it changes as much in adolescence is when a child's around, the first 2 years of life. And so they have less control over what comes out. And there's all these emotions, but they're not feeling heard, because it's really hard to hear a teenager. And part of that is they're going against the social norms to develop their own identity. And part of it is that we weren't listened to as teenagers. And so we don't know how to listen to teenagers. So giving empathy when it's hard for us, even if someone's not using a social skill, a pro-social skill, which is a social skill that, supports socialization, you can give empathy. When you talk that way, I feel really uncomfortable, and I want to hear what you're saying. Can you try to say it in a different way? I really want to hear what you're saying. Can you have your tone of voice to me sounded a little aggressive? Maybe you weren't trying to have it be that way, but it sounded to me a little bit aggressive. So can you have it softer? Let's try it again. I want to hear what you have to say. So we can call out what we see. Everyone has blind spots. And so when your child's blind spot is around nonverbal communication, you just say what you see. Oh, what I'm experiencing is your tone of voice sounds combative. You don't mean it that way? Okay, that's how it feels to me though. See, can we have it a little lower? That would work better for me. So it's about taking self-responsibility too. And then for younger kids, it's you can just teach them. Well, what is it like when I say hello like this? Hello versus like this. Hello versus like this. Hello. And so you teach them tone of voice by playing with it. What do you think I'm feeling? What would you feel if that happened? So you just teach them level and tone of voice. So being able to read facial expressions and gestures accurately is also a big part of nonverbal communication. And again, you can look at movies or magazines or just people watch. And what do you see on that person's face? What are their eyebrows doing? What is their mouth doing? How do you think they're feeling? What is their body language telling you? What do you see versus what do I see? As we may have different interpretations too. And to be able to read the tone of voice in others as well is important. So let's talk a little bit about healthy conflict resolution. To be able to resolve a conflict or a fight with a peer, or even a teacher, it requires integrating all 4 areas of social skills. You have to be able to regulate emotion and not get overwhelmed, which is hard for a lot of adults, even myself included. So you have to be able to do that, though, in order to resolve a conflict well. You have to have some kind of verbal ability to be able to use your words in a way that you are communicating what you're actually thinking and feeling and what you want, to be able to hear others' words and to process them. So if someone has a delayed verbal ability, then it's gonna be harder for them to resolve conflicts if it's going at a fast pace. There are ways you can slow it down if someone has like maybe a verbal processing delay, which I've worked with many children that do, and we just say, it takes me a little bit longer to understand words. Can we talk a little bit slower? I want to get this. So empathy, being able to know, to understand what someone else is feeling and why they might be feeling that way, and sort of not get defensive about it. But instead to sort of have reflective listening. Oh, you're feeling mad because you wanted to go down the slide first. And so that's not negating, I wanted to go down the slide first. That's why I pushed you out of the way or whatever happened with the children. But to have that empathy first is an important part of healthy conflict resolution. Being able to plan what to say, how to say it, so executive functioning, and flexibility in the moment to work out the problem creatively. Oftentimes, problems are not resolved in the way we thought they were going to be. Sometimes, for kids and adults alike, We just need our feelings heard, and that solves the problem. There's nothing else that needs to be done. Or there's some other, or you get stuck. We're not sure how to solve the problem because we both want to do our own thing and we're supposed to be playing together, but we don't want to do the same thing. And so how do we have some flexibility to work out the problem creatively? So that cognitive flexibility again. And nonverbal communication to show openness, listening, and non-threatening gestures. This is more for older kids, again, because for the younger kids, it's really important mostly that they have the ability to feel their feelings, and it's going to come out through their body. It just does. They're unfiltered. But you can, if it's starting to cause problems, you can give little bits of guidance. Well, let's at least turn towards each other. Okay, let's see, if we have our fists clenched, it might make us feel mad. It may make the other one think we're mad. So let's have our hands open. So you want to have teach open nonverbal gestures. So open body language, facing towards someone, not having your legs crossed, having your arms, kind of out, not protecting yourself. Which again is challenging. And I would task you all the next time that you're in a little bit of a conflict, whether it's at work or with a friend or with your partner, is try and notice what you do nonverbally. Do you cross your hands over your chest? Do you slightly turn away? Do you notice your shoulders tense up and you kind of harden? So just notice what is happening in your nonverbal communication, because when we engage our bodies in those ways, we're also communicating to ourselves. And so if our body is tight, we're not only communicating to the other person, time to fight, but we're also communicating to ourselves, we're under attack. We're under attack, we better protect. So see what happens if you soften and get vulnerable. I find it's really, really important to try out the things that we teach our children. It's very humbling, in fact, because these skills are quite challenging, and they leave us pretty open, pretty vulnerable. So give it a shot and see what it's like, and then we can come with more empathy to our children, and that will make much more headway than anything else, because social skills is not like math or writing. It's about being human. And so if we can't really sit down and teach it in a classroom, it's really about having our hearts open while we're teaching, breaking it down as well. So try it in your own life. Try this piece of keeping your body language open when there's a conflict. See what happens with your emotions. Are you able to identify your emotions and not get overwhelmed with them? Are you able to still have some empathy for the person who you're talking with, even if you don't agree? How is planning for you? Figuring out what you want to say. What does that feel like for you? And how flexible in the moment do you feel without being harsh on yourself? Do you get harsh on yourself? A lot of us do that. Oh man, I should have said this one thing. Just notice what it's like for you. And then, we can take that knowledge and understanding into our work with the children in our lives. So challenge your brain to develop these skills as well. There's always more to be developed. So the challenge of the healthy conflict resolution is that you have to synthesize many skills at once. For children, you have to navigate a constantly changing body and mind. They are just changing so much. And again, like I said, this is more true with adolescents too, because their brains are kind of in a disarray with new hormones and shifts. They have to navigate increasingly complex social relationships and demands that they just keep getting harder and harder. And they have to do all of this while managing feelings of frustration and helplessness, because it's a normal part of childhood to feel frustrated and helpless, because there's always someone who can do it better, who's stronger, who's faster, who can do it when you can't. And it doesn't matter that they're older and their brain is more developed. It still translates a feeling of being sort of powerless. And you have to be able to manage self-esteem and all of this too. Okay, so even though I'm doing all this stuff and things are going pretty well and I have a little fight with my friends, how can I do this while still thinking, hey, I'm awesome. I'm good, even though things are hard sometimes. So that's hard for children. You know, their self-esteem is in some ways fragile, you know, as their ego is still developing. And there's not a lot for the self to lean on aside from validation from the external world and, you know, from parents and teachers and peers. And so being able to manage that is part of the challenge of having a healthy conflict resolution. And to navigate any complex feelings, expectations, or relationships in family, home life. So if things are challenging at home, if there's been a divorce, a loss, a move recently, if one or more parents are really stressed out from their work or busy all the time, or there's, you know, challenges with a sibling having issues, so that can make things really hard. And teachers, I urge you to keep this in mind. A lot of times as teachers, we don't know what's going on at home. Sometimes parents are so overwhelmed they don't think to share, or it can just be so vulnerable to share with your teacher and be worried that, you know, your real very, very personal demons might get out to your community that you have to see every single day and that your child is, you know, dependent on. So you may not know what's really going on at home. And I hear of cases like this all the time. So teachers, if you have a child in your classroom who's struggling, just you know, I would say just talk with parents and say, you know, how are things going at home? How are you feeling? Are you feeling supported? You know, create that alliance, because home life is challenging, especially those of you that live in the Bay Area, as I do. There's just so much to navigate. So it is definitely part of the challenge for just, you know, that simple solving that fight about who gets to play handball next. You know, it really involves all of this. So how can you help? You know, you want to help, and you definitely can. So I think of it as, you know, you want to create a fertile soil first and foremost. Fertile soil for your child to develop those skills that they need for healthy conflict resolution and all social skills. And part of that is just provide outlets for big feelings. So it's really normal, natural, and healthy for all people, and kids especially, to have big feelings. So where can they have those outlets? Are there places where they can go in with the Presidio, or in places in nature where they can just throw rocks into the water and yell things that they hate? Or when they cry, can you listen to them instead of trying to fix it or change it? Just let those feelings to come out. When they're afraid, you know, kind of being there, being in it with them. You know what? Okay, it's really scary right now. I get it. You know what? I'm going to hold you real tight, and you get to be afraid, and I will make sure that you're safe. So providing outlets for those big feelings for you too, you know, for parents and teachers too. We need to find ways that we feel supported in our emotions so that we can be creating this fertile soil for our children. If our soil is depleted, it's going to be very hard to give that to our children. So making sure that you too have outlets for your big feelings. And a lot of people are having a lot of big feelings these days. So I would urge you to find, you know, in hand-in-hand parenting, we do listening partnerships, which is, you know, I teach parenting groups where we offer listening partnerships, and you just get to have your feelings uncensored. And you can find listeners in your community as well. And just going places where you can have those big feelings and making that known to your child that there are places where you can have those big feelings. So even if you're holding it together all day, it can come out in a safe place at home, you know, in your quiet area, in the tent, in the feelings tent, where you go inside of there and it's quiet and you have your pillows and your little nightlight and you get to, you know, have your emotion books and let it all out. You want to also offer sources of self-esteem. So the things that bring kids up and make them feel resilient and make them feel strong and joyful. And, you know, so a lot of what that is are noticing what they're drawn to. Notice what your child puts effort into and what brings them joy, and validate it. You know, it's really not so much about praise. There's nothing, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with genuine praise if your child's making an effort and feeling good about it. To reflect that to him or her can really boost their self-esteem. I notice that you love karate and you just go every single week and you follow the teacher and you kick, and that is awesome. You know, so really reflecting the things that they put effort into, that they are good at, that they're drawn to, that they follow themselves, not the things that they're doing because you know, encourage them to or sign them up, but really just what it is that they're drawn to. You know, offer their esteem, you know, their ability to feel good about their choices, their judgment, their thoughts, their efforts, even when it's small. You know, you've been having trouble hitting at school, and I noticed today there was a situation where you might have in the past hit, but you didn't. Instead, you just kicked a tree. That is great. So offering, really letting them know that you're noticing when they're trying. And again, just what they're drawn to, what their interests are naturally, even if it doesn't make any sense to you. Doesn't matter how old they are. Show an interest in what draws them, especially with your teenagers. They cannot let you know that they want your attention. They're not allowed to. I have a 12-year-old niece and she's so hard to connect with, but I see when I put those efforts in that it matters. It really, really matters. So just put your interest in what draws them, and foster connection with your family at home. Have times where you just, you know, hang out and play together, where the kids get to decide, okay, we're going to play together for a half hour. What do you want to do? What should we do? We can do anything you want. Let them decide, and just have it be connection time, goalless connection time. No goal, no cleaning up, no doing emails, no teaching them letters or correcting grammar, just pure connection, just hanging out with no goal. And there's lots of different ways families do that, but I find that that's kind of the sort of missing nutrient right now in our society, is just sort of that unhurried family connection time where, hey, we're all home. What do you want to do? Oh, you want to sit down and read? You're sitting down and read? Okay, I'm going to sit down right next to you, put my arm around you, and just love you while you read. It could be that simple. So you can also, you know, so that's creating the fertile soil for these things to develop, these you know, prerequisites to social skills. And you want to plant the seeds too. You can plant the seeds. You can explicitly teach social skills and related vocabulary. So all the things we went through today, you can explicitly teach your children those things. You can explicitly teach what tone of voice is and how to have a conversation. You know, you could do it with a ball. You know, when we have a conversation, we toss the ball back and forth. When that conversation dies, we get a new ball, because conversations don't go on forever, but let's see how long we can keep it going. And keep it interesting. You can teach things, and I'll give you some resources about that, and the related vocabulary, which we'll get into, and then just provide lots of opportunities to practice and notice. So lots of time with other children. People watching is helpful. Play dates, those kinds of things. Okay, so I'll get more into this. So creating fertile soil, you want to invite the big feelings, get to know them and play with those feelings. Listen when your child is sad, mad, afraid, and confused. When they're having those feelings, all you need to do is listen with love and attention. And this is a parenting by connection tool, also hand-in-hand parenting. It's the same name. It's the same approach. Just has two different. Hand-in-hand parenting is the organization, and parenting by connection is the approach. So parenting by connection teaches something called stay listening. And this is something I teach in my 5-week class that's coming up in May, and also that you can learn a lot about online. But it's when your child's having a big feeling, just listen with your love and attention. You don't have to change anything. And that helps them to be able to increase their tolerance for big feelings and to be able to identify what the feelings are and to identify what the challenges underneath the feelings are once the feelings kind of get out of them. Connect, set aside 20 minutes of one to 2 times a week to play however your child wants. This is, again, parenting by connection tool called special time, where you literally set a timer. Usually it's a one-on-one. Special time is a one-on-one with one child, one parent, and if possible. And you just set the timer. Now it's special time. We get to do whatever you want for the next 20 minutes and literally just follow their lead. Over time, it starts to develop a warmth and a connection between you and your child, the ability to communicate. You get to know your child in a different way. It eases the stress of parenting because you're not trying to fix or change or teach anything. And it teaches your child that he or she has good judgment. At first, the judgment might be challenged, but over time, it's growing and it's good. It's a good judgment. A 3-year-old judgment is good for the 3-year-old. It doesn't have to be the judgment of, the ability to make decisions that a 25-year-old does. So special time where your child is totally in charge, that can really help with self-esteem and connection and the ability to just interact well. Again, notice and follow your child's interests and get support so you can parent or teach from a centered place, not a depleted place. So ways to get support, with your partner or spouse, if you have one, with friends, making sure you're having some kind of self-care, whether it's journaling to get your feelings out, therapy, or listening partnerships, looking at what in your life nourishes you. And I know this is a very challenging part of parenting, in particular, teaching as well. It's just where can I find the time and energy to do this? And so I've done whole workshops on self-care, and there are ways you can get support. It might not be super easy, but you will be able to make it easier. So get the support. Just think through, even right now as I'm talking, or after this call, if you're listening, just write down 3 things that nourish you, that you want to do more of or less of. What is it that nourishes you? Do you need more time? Do you need to go to that yoga class once a week? Do you need just after 6 o'clock one night a week, nobody to bother you? You just be in your room, nobody talks to you? What is it that is going to help you feel supported? Do you need to talk with other parents to just not feel alone in this? So think through, what is it that supports you? And you'll be able to support your students if you're a teacher, and your children if you're a parent much, much more easily. You'll be able to use your executive functioning, let's say. And then, planting the seeds. So explicitly teaching social skills. So there's books and games that teach social skills. Superflex is on socialthinking.com. It's a superhero curriculum that teaches about these villains to social skills that get into kids' brains and make them act certain ways that make it hard for them to play and work with other people, like Rock Brain makes kids get stuck on their ideas. And then Glass Man gets kids to have really big reactions and shatter. So in addition to just letting feelings be there and listening, you can also teach other ways to deal with them. You know, do you notice Rock Brain coming up in mommy or daddy sometimes? What is that like when that happens? What do you think that we could do to help? You know, what does it feel like in you when Rock Brain happens? What can we do to join together to fight Rock Brain, or to turn Rock Brain into flexible brain? You know, let yourself get creative with it. But Superflex is a curriculum that you could use. Just the one thing I would caution is try not to use it as a way to blame. Sometimes that curriculum can be used. You're a Rock Brain now. You're a Rock Brain. You're turning into Rock Brain. And we don't want to do that. We want to use it as a way to ally with our children and say, you know, we can, you know, we can play in a way that is really fun for you, and where kids are going to enjoy being with you. And so when Rock Brain comes, I think he makes it hard. What can we do together when he comes? What does he need? Does he need a hug? You know, so it's kind of a way to talk about those challenges and feelings without it being so closely connected to your child. Because since the self-esteem is developing through childhood, it can be hard for kids at times to talk directly about the things that are hard for them, because it's kind of an affront to their self-esteem. It can feel that way. So to talk about it as something disidentified from them. It's not you, it's Rock Brain. Well, what should we do when Rock Brain comes? We gotta fight him. He's like a virus. So you could use Superflex. Simon's Hook is a very nice little book that teaches about teasing, what happens when kids tease, and how when kids tease, you often bite the hook by saying something mean back or getting really upset, and that's like, it's like the hook, like they're fishing and they hook you, and then they are controlling you. And so it's a great story, picture book story about how to not get hooked by those teasings. Socialthinking.com again has a lot of resources that can be helpful for teaching social skills. And you can just Google social skills games if you're feeling the energy and the impulse, and you're wanting to teach one of these things that we've talked about. Just Google social skills games for working together for 5-year-olds, or, you know, social skills games for friendships for 10-year-olds. You know, see what comes up. There's a lot out there. You can role play different scenarios that your child deals with, and let yourself be, you know, see if your child wants to be the aggressor. Oftentimes when there's a challenge, you know, or we'll see the other person as the aggressor. So if your child comes home, it's like, Johnny did this to me. Well, okay, let's see if you want to act that out. You could want to be Johnny, and I could be you, and let it be playful. And let it be really playful. It doesn't have to be where you're working out a real-time solution. It could just be a way to help your child to process what's happening. So maybe you act it out and your child's Johnny, and he cuts you in half with a foam sword and you die. That's what he wants, maybe. You know, maybe that's what your child wants the game to go. That would be fine. You know, that would be fine. That lets your child feel some, you know, it's like, oh, okay, he's feeling really cut down by that kid and sort of helpless. So let that happen. And then you can go back in and, okay, well, how can we want to role play another way? And maybe he doesn't need to. Maybe he just needed to express what he was feeling and have you witness it. Maybe he doesn't need it to be fixed, or to sort of act out what the right solution would be. Maybe he does. So let yourself play with it. But what you don't want to do is turn it into a chore that then your child is saying, I don't want to role play. So make sure you keep it fun, and let it be silly, and let it be imaginative. Remember, it's imagination. It's not real life, and it will help your child process what's going on at school, and will most importantly help your child be able to talk to you about what's going on without feeling judged or criticized. So let yourself role play and let it be fun. You could also list social vocabulary to practice. For example, you could print, here's just a few, and you could Google that too, or socialthinking.com has a lot of resources. But you could print these out, thinking with your eyes. Okay, I want to practice thinking with our eyes this week. So I'm going to, and again, do what you're asking your child to do. I think it's really important that we level with our kids. And then come home every day. What's one time that you did thinking with your eyes? What did you notice? And then social smarts. There's a whole book on socialthinking.com about being a social detective. That's really great. It's about, it breaks it down in lots of ways. That's a good one I'd recommend. So social smarts is thinking that about other kids and how other kids have thoughts about you. And so you might just say, what's the time you used your social smarts? Which is another way of saying, that you might say instead, acted well or we're good. So we just change the vocabulary a little bit, and that in and of itself helps your child to